Yesterday, I was asked by somebody, well, Charlie, what has Trump even done so far as president? What has he done in the last 53 days? I don't think we have spent enough time on this program pausing, internalizing, and celebrating the magnitude and the weight of what President Trump has accomplished when it comes to the southern border. People know it. They're hearing it, but what I want to do is emphasize it to such an important degree to you today. To show you what President Trump has done on the border is so remarkable, and it should never be taken for granted. U.S. Border Patrol, in the month of February, arrested 8,300 border jumpers coming into our country in February. 8,300 in an entire month. That is the fewest ever recorded. Let me say that again. That is the fewest ever recorded. And unlike under Joe Biden, they are not being released into the interior of the country. They're not getting a court date. They're being returned to their country of origin. Now, it's very easy to attack President Trump saying, oh, these tariffs are a waste of time. Not so fast, my friend. These tariffs are also largely, and the threat of tariffs are why Mexico is now taking the security of the southern border seriously. A year ago, in February, 141,000 people were detained at the border. So we went from 141,000 under Joe Biden to 8,300. 141 to 8.3. A year ago, more than 3,500 people were caught crossing the border who were originally from China. Now it's only 130, and they're all being sent back to China. A year ago, 600 people were caught crossing from Mauritania. That's an impoverished African country where slavery is still very, very common. This month, the total was 1, and they were sent back to their country of origin. This was always a question of the will. Washington claimed, including Mitch McConnell and James Lankford, that they needed sweeping new laws to secure the southern border, and they were lying to you. So there's two parts what I want to talk about here. And also, by the way, there is breaking news. President Trump just posted that he had great discussions with Vladimir Putin. I'm going to allow Blake to pivot and read and analyze that while I break this down. So Blake, please focus on the Putin news while I continue on this. Because I need to emphasize the border win. There's so much happening, but we have to take a little bit of time and slow down and say, wow, what President Trump has accomplished here is remarkable. This was always a question of whether or not we wanted it. Understand that the biggest questions of our time, whether it be homelessness, whether it be the southern border, inflation, is whether or not we want what is best. Joe Biden did not want a southern border. He wanted a dilution of national sovereignty. He wanted a great replacement of American citizens. He wanted a nonstop flow of illegals into the country. For whatever reason, you can guess, you can hypothesize, but we know that he wanted it. We know certainly that is what he wanted. Let's go to some of the tape here. It is so remarkable. This is Bill Melugin, and Bill Melugin is going to be out of a job. Bill Melugin was the caravan correspondent. Bill Melugin was the border guy. Bill Melugin is going to have to come work at the Charlie Kirk show. And by the way, we would love to have Bill Melugin. I don't think Fox would want to see him. Fox is doing a great job, by the way, especially lately on of this coverage. But Bill Melugin got to find a new line of work. Maybe Bill Melugin can be the senior Canadian correspondent. There's a lot to cover there. He goes from the border correspondent to the Canadian correspondent. Bill Melugin is a top-tier American, 10 out of 10 patriot, phenomenal reporter. But he's going to have to find a new thing to cover. Now, of course, he does cover a lot of stories, but he became very famous for covering the border. Of course, I'm being lightheartedly sarcastic. Play cut 240.
Gotaways have also completely fallen off a cliff since Trump took office. CBP sources tell us over the last 21 days, there have been an average of just 77 gotaways per day nationwide. That's down 95.8% from the Biden highs of fiscal year 2023. That's when there were a staggering 1,830 gotaways on average every single day.
I want you to internalize that. Over the last 21 days, there's been an average of only 77 gotaways. By the way, it should be zero. We're going to get to zero. It's going to be Project Zero. That's a 95.8% decrease from Biden highs. Fox reported that the ICE director has now uncovered tens of thousands of border crossings where Biden cooked the books and recorded them as arrests when in reality, they're in your neighborhoods. Play cut 250.
Homeland Security officials are accusing the Biden administration of misleading the public on border numbers. So by counting migrants that were processed and released as ICE arrests. That doesn't sound right.
Those senior leaders with DHS and ICE took time to speak to reporters, and they basically accused the Biden administration of what they're calling, quote, cooking the books and lying basically to the American public about how many illegal migrants they actually arrested. The Biden administration reported more than 100,000 arrests in fiscal year 2024. But the senior leaders say the numbers are deceiving. That is because the majority of these arrests are what's called pass-through arrests, meaning they pass through ICE, then were just released into American communities pending those immigration hearings.
The liberation of your country is being televised. The restoration of your sovereignty is happening in real time. President Trump will be criticized every day in the media, but he needs to be heralded and celebrated by every patriot in America because you have a border again. Your sovereignty is coming back to life. And that needs to be repeated on a daily basis. Told to your friends, told to your family. We were told that this cannot be solved. We were told that this was an impossibility. We were told that this needed to have a bipartisan bill. We need to put all these people in a room together. Do you know the bipartisan bill that Jim Lankford was pushing, James Lankford, would have allowed 5,000 people a day to come across the southern border? Well, 4,999. Senator Lankford would have, if he would have got his way and Mitch McConnell would have got his way, they would have put handcuffs on President Trump, who would have inherited this border bill. That is why they did it. They pushed this bill to try to prevent the now border closure that you are living through. It would have codified illegal immigration into law. It would have had permanency for the invasion. And President Trump would have said, I never signed this. And he would have said, well, too bad. You have to live under the 4,999 statute. You would have had a rolling average, a rolling new norm of just 4,999 people a day. Here's Joe Biden saying, well, we need a bipartisan border bill. And it goes right onto James Lankford's face. And I hope you never forget the treachery of James Lankford. He will be primaried and he will be removed. He almost sold out our entire country. That was his motivation. Play cut 268.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against?
We did not need a bipartisan bill. We needed a new president. And with the new president, we now have a border, a restoration of our country. This is James Lankford. I can't get off of this. The Putin-Trump news is not that breaking, but it is important. We'll get to that. But understand and repeat and commit it to memory and teach it to your children and teach it to your neighbors that we would be living in a much different reality right now. The reality would be that Trump would say, let's close the border. Sorry, there was a bipartisan bill signed under Joe Biden. And James Lankford was the defender, the author, and the advocate of trying to neuter Donald Trump. He was trying to cut off Donald Trump's ability to do what the voters wanted him to do. And honestly, credit to Speaker Mike Johnson. I got to give credit where credit's due. We call balls and strikes here in this program. Mike Johnson was a hard no on this border bill. And good for him. Remember when everyone said, oh, they want the border to be open? No. We knew that this bill would have codified 4,999 people coming across the southern border. Congress, which was led by James Lankford on the Republican side, said that 5,000 people a day is a normal amount of traffic at the border. This looked like it could pass. The Senate was getting on board. James Lankford was leading it. And Mike Johnson, to his credit, and his little tiny mighty majority, nuked it. So you got to give Mike Johnson credit. It might have been one of the greatest things Mike Johnson ever did as Speaker. You just got to always be clear about where things are. What he did was significant. He stood up to James Lankford and this entire team. Here's James Lankford bragging on cable TV about how they wanted to steal Donald Trump's term away from him. Let's play cut 269.
Yeah, it's not gates opening. That's a misunderstanding of the bill itself. It's how many can we process and actually deport. When you raise the standard for people coming across, when you increase the detention beds, when you increase deportation flights, you're not letting people in. And people are thinking about how the Biden administration is running it now. Right now, the Biden administration is allowing, for instance, 1,500 people a day just to come to the ports of entry, get a work permit, and get released in the country. People coming between ports of entry get what's called a notice to appear and get released in the country. All of that stops. We're focused on how many people can we process quickly and then deport out of the country, not release into the country. It would be absolutely absurd for anyone to be able to propose something to say we're just going to slow the number of releases. We're focused on how do we actually enforce our border and get us back to zero people actually crossing the border illegally. Every administration has struggled to be able to get the authorities in place to be able to actually enforce our border. Let's put them in place.
Wrong, James Lankford. We'll never forget, Trump's not struggling. He didn't need a bill. You are wrong. You are a liar. You are a fake. You are a fraud. You went on TV and say, well, every administration struggled. Trump right now is not struggling. Trump is hanging out doing other stuff. He's renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America because we have a border. There's no struggling. Oh, well, every administration's struggling. It just took a will. It took a desire. It took willpower to get it done. It did not take some bipartisan committee. And you on TV right there, well, every administration has struggled. No. You only struggle if you don't want it. And we're kicking you out of office, James Lankford. I'm going to say this every month, and I am not going to forget about this one. Like a heat-seeking missile, we're coming after him in 2028. And he might want to run for governor. He's not going to be able to run for mosquito abatement director in Enid, Oklahoma after this. Because the great people of Oklahoma are smart. They're wise. They got a great cuttedness to them. They're tough. And James Lankford is controlled opposition. We would have a wide open border right now if James Lankford would have got his way. Oklahoma Patriots, never forget.